In the mid-20th century, the world looked to the skies not just with wonder, but with fear. The United States and the Soviet Union weren't only locked in a Cold War on Earth. They were racing into space, pushing science, technology, and humanity itself to the limits. This was the space race, a battle for supremacy that would forever change the future of our planet. It all began on October 4th, 1957, when the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1. The first artificial satellite, a polished sphere with 4 antennas. Sputnik was only 23 inches wide, but it shocked the world. For the first time, humans had placed an object into orbit. For Americans, it was a wake-up call. The Soviets had beaten them into space, and suddenly, the Cold War had a new frontier. Just a month later, Sputnik 2 carried Laika, a stray dog from Moscow, becoming the first living creature to orbit Earth. Though Laika didn't survive, her mission proved that space travel for living beings was possible. The U.S. knew it couldn't afford to fall behind. In 1958, it created NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, to unify its space efforts. That same year, America launched its first satellite, Explorer 1, which discovered Earth's radiation belts. But early American rockets often exploded on the launch pad, broadcast live on television. The Soviet Union seemed unstoppable, as it scored victory after victory. Then came the moment that changed history. On April 12, 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. He orbited the Earth once aboard Vostok 1, spending 108 minutes in space. Gagarin returned a hero, not just in the Soviet Union, but across the globe. For the U.S., this was another devastating loss in the race for prestige. Just weeks later, President John F. Kennedy responded with one of the most ambitious promises in history. We choose to go to the moon, not because it is easy, but because it is hard. The race now had a clear finish line. The moon. To prepare, NASA launched the Gemini program in the mid-1960s. Astronauts learned to maneuver in space, dock spacecraft, and survive longer missions. These were the essential skills needed for a lunar journey. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union continued its own missions. Cosmonaut Alexei Leonov performed the world's first spacewalk in 1965, floating outside his capsule for 12 minutes. Once again, the Soviets seemed ahead. But behind the scenes, their lunar program faced technical and political challenges. Their giant rocket, the N-1, failed repeatedly. In contrast, the U.S. poured billions into the Apollo program, developing the mighty Saturn V, the largest rocket ever built. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center. 4 days later, on July 20th, the world watched as astronaut Neil Armstrong descended the lunar module ladder and spoke the famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." The United States had won the space race. Buzz Aldrin joined Armstrong on the surface, while Michael Collins orbited above. Together, they fulfilled Kennedy's promise, just 8 years after it was made. The space race didn't end with Apollo 11. The U.S. completed 6 successful moon landings, while the Soviets pioneered long-term space stations. But the true legacy wasn't just about who won. It was about what humanity gained. Advances in rocketry and satellites that power today's communications and GPS. New materials and technologies. From computer chips to medical equipment. And most importantly, a new vision of Earth not as divided nations, but as one fragile world in space. The space race was born out of rivalry, but it left behind progress that benefits all of humanity. From Sputnik to Apollo, the space race was more than a contest. It was a story of ambition, fear, and the human drive to explore the unknown. The Cold War may be over, but the race to the stars continues with new nations, new technologies, and perhaps one day, a new giant leap.